Welcome to IAS Market Talk, your trusted source for timely egg market insight, brought to you by Innovative Egg Services. Each week, we break down the latest beef market trends impacting Northeast Iowa and Southwest Wisconsin with expert updates tailored specifically for our IAS members. This week, you'll hear directly from Dave Rueber, IAS Beef Production Specialist, who brings decades of experience and deep knowledge of the cattle industry to these conversations. Dave has been providing market updates to producers for years, and now he brings those insights straight to you through this podcast. So tune in weekly for what you need to know, straight from people you know. With that, here's Dave Rueber with the latest on what's happening in the cattle markets this week.
David Rueber, Beef Production Specialist for Innovative Egg Services, calling with a beef market commentary for August 20th. It's become ho-hum another week, another set of records. This week has been the soaring box beef prices. Choice boxes basically went from $370, $380 up to $405 in about a week and a half. Just a crazy ride up, and got packers back to kind of break even, give or take a little bit with the prices. Cash prices last week, kind of almost a tick disappointing. I don't know if you can call 240 disappointing, but one of the majors, kind of towing the line at 240, not getting a lot of cattle bought, but some of the other regional packers bidding closer to 245, but not a lot of cattle traded last week. This week, kind of coming out of the gates pretty strong. There's already 245 bids out there from one of the regionals today. The futures market was skyrocketing upwards again. New contract highs for every month but August on the futures. We got October futures prices pushing mid-230s. Just kind of a wild bullish market is what it amounts to. If you watch the last few weeks, when we've had a really big day, a $3-4 bump, a lot of times the next day will give $2 or $3 back again. So be interested to see what tomorrow does. It all depends. If cash cattle end up trading higher than 245, that futures market's going to have a hard time showing any weakness. Just unprecedented times. Same deal on feeder cattle. They're higher every week. The feeder end north of 350. These 8-weight steers are 350s. 7-weight steers, 360s, 370s. You hear a 6-weight's $4. Heifers running $20 to $30 back of the steers, depending on what weight they are and what kind of quantity and quality that you're looking at. But that feeder thing, we got break evens north at 230 now. We thought we paid too much for them 6 months ago, and they were working out just fine. Thought we paid too much 3 months ago, and those look cheap. One of these times we'll buy them and we'll wish that we hadn't, but you just got to hope there's only one turn that we get beat up on, not 2 or 3. What do you do if you're sitting on a bunch of cheap feed, $60 a ton hay and $3.80 corn? You can't eat it yourself, so you buy cattle and you hope to add some value to it, and that's kind of where it's at. Feeder cattle probably soften a little bit when the calf runs pick up here in a month and a half or so, but boy, there's just enough supply moving for that thing to do much. I got a cattle on feed report Friday. Who knows? I don't even know if it could be negative. Don't think there's any unforeseen information can come out of that. So it just feels like kind of a strong market continuing. Cost of gains, like corn market, strongly under $4, $370, $380 corn. Cost of gain 90 cents or under for steers, mid-90s for heifers, and some of these cattle will feed cheaper than that if they get pretty good performance. So just crazy times out there. Once again, my name is David Rueber, Beef Production Specialist for Innovative Ag. Thank you. That's a Western steer that's really efficient, fed in a yard that does a really nice job. You can see some numbers like that, but I certainly wouldn't be factoring every critter out there is going to feed for less than 85 cents. Be careful with your numbers there. Keep an eye on those interest rates. Feels like we're going to see a quarter point, maybe once or twice before the end of the year drop, so that can help some things as well. Feeder cattle prices, steamrolling right along. Good 8-weight steer is going to run in the 360s. 7-weights will be 390s. You hear some low 7s up there, $4 a pound. The 6-weights are $4 a pound on all of them, and they're mid-4s on some of those 6-weights. 5-weights, you can hear the occasional $5 a pound on some of those 5s. We'll start seeing some of these calves coming to market here in the next few weeks. I think we'll probably take a little bit of the edge off of these feeder cattle prices when these calf runs pick up and there's more available cattle out there. So something to keep an eye out. Plus the yearlings that we buy right now can kind of catch that April market, which I was just telling you before that those deferred futures have put a nice rally in. There's actually some life to buying some of these yearlings and hedging them off against April. So something else to keep in mind there. Like I said, got the big Cy-Hawk game Saturday. We'll root for one of the teams. I'll let you folks decide. I don't want to jinx the team I'm rooting for, so we'll hopefully have the right outcome Saturday. Once again, my name is David Rueber, Beef Production Specialist for Innovative Ag.
That's it for this week's episode of IAS Market Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an update. And if you know a fellow producer could benefit from this information, share this episode with them. For more updates and insights, visit innovativeag.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We'll catch you next time on IAS Market Talk.